Okay, so I am here with the Reader Lounge, and thank you for being on the show. How are you doing?
Thank you for inviting me, Justin. And yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Awesome, awesome. And now you're in Mexico, and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is funny.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So tell me a little bit about your Instagram page. How did this come about?
Yeah, so well, I think that like to introduce that, I would have to introduce my personal story with books first. And so
Hmm.
yeah, I will just share that story, and I will thus introduce the Reader Lounge. Um, and yeah, so it was well in 2018. I read like the first book. I read my first book by like personal choice. Before that, I only used to read like books that school told me to read and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't really like to read. But then in 2018, my dad gave me a copy of Elon Musk's biography, and so I was, and I am a big fan of Musk. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I read his biography. Then I got interested in books and in learning through them mostly. Um, and yeah, I kept reading, and then in 2020, I bought. So before that, I only used to read books in Spanish because I mean I'm
Hmm.
Mexican and read in Spanish. Um, but yeah, then in 2020, I bought like maybe 10 or a dozen books, a dozen books in English. And by the time, I also came to see many Instagram pages that talked about books. Basically, they were book blogs. And yeah, so in January 10, yeah, in January 10 of 2020, I created the Reader Lounge, inspired by another book blog. It's called 1 Minute Book Review. I don't know if you have heard about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I follow it.
Yeah. Yes. So basically, because of him, because of On, who is 1 Minute Book Review's founder,
Hmm.
I got inspired to create my own page. And like the idea of creating the Reader Lounge came basically because by the time I had been wanting like to create something of my own, some project with which I could connect with people, and with which I could basically start also earning some money and adding value. That was like the main idea at first. And now like recalling how the experience and how the journey has unfolded, I can see that like the vision that I initially had was not at all similar like to how the journey is developing right now and to the vision that I have for the brand in the present. But yeah, like that was like the main idea initially. And so in January 10 of 2020, I created the Reader Lounge as an Instagram book blog. And from there, yeah, I just started posting, sharing some of the books that I was reading, then sharing reviews, connecting with people. Um, and after that, I created a podcast, which then became my personal podcast. And then this year, I started another podcast show
Hmm.
for the Reader Lounge and for some plans that I have with it. And yeah, so basically, it started just as an Instagram book blog, and now it is more of an ecosystem, I would say, around
Hmm.
books with which I want like to add value to people, to connect, and to what I want to do is like to nurture this potential that books make you see. So I my experience with books has been that like they make you aware of many things that you're living on the table, many skills, many possibilities, many ideas, many dreams. And so I want to help people like tap into those things through books because that has been my experience.
Hmm.
And also because of how the journey has developed, how it has unfolded. Um, like the vision or the idea right now is not to make it just of a book blog. It's again about making it something more, and I think that's like the best brief introduction to the Reader Lounge and to what it is and what it has been. So it started as a book blog, sharing mostly nonfiction personal development books, and right
Hmm.
now I am sharing the same or using the same type of books with quite a different purpose and in a different way. If if you know what I mean.
Interesting, because you mentioned Elon Musk,
Hmm.
and you said you weren't a fan of him. But so, what was it about the Elon Musk book that like opened you up? I'm
Hmm.
curious.
Yeah, so well, firstly, I think that it was because it was Elon Musk's book, and so I mean, I for many years now I have been interested in entrepreneurship and then creating things. I think that mostly because of like personal people that have personally close people that have influenced me a lot, like to go in that path, and also because of all the hype that there is in social media about like entrepreneurship and those things. So yeah, before I read Elon Musk, so before 2018, I I was already having this like dreams, let's say, about creating stuff and about being an entrepreneur and having a business and those things. And so I, well, reading Elon Musk was like my first like close look at what the life of an entrepreneur like him,
Mm.
what that life is like. And I think that what I also found very interesting from that biography and what then led me to like read other type of books and to get deeper into this was a chapter in which the author Ashley Vance talks about an experience in Musk's life in which basically Tesla and SpaceX were going bankrupt, but then he took some actions and he was basically bankrupt himself, but he managed to save his companies, and that was quite inspiring. Um, and I just loved reading that. So also the reading experience was quite uh, unfamiliar or uncommon comparing it to what I was used to with books. So it was like a different experience with the book, and that got me like engaged with books, with reading.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, I mean, it just shows the power of reading. That
Mm,
like that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that when you're reading, it almost disarms you from the way you're thinking. You
mm,
know, you kind of just like fall into like it lulls you into a different way of thought. And that's what I've always loved about books is it just I feel like I'm broadening my spectrum. I'm sure you've read Think and Grow Rich.
yeah.
That's that's one of the entrepreneurs number one books. But the reason I think that it stays there is it's not so much how to grow rich. It's showing you the mindset
Mm,
of how to grow rich. And I think that's kind of what the Elon Musk book did for you is it just opened you up to, because it is fascinating that, he was about to go you bankrupt and, here's this guy who created PayPal and he decided to use SpaceX
mhm.
and Tesla. Most people would just sit back and just be like, oh, I don't have to work anymore,
Yeah,
I mean, if you
yeah.
talk to the average person, most people are just their dream is to not work, even though not realizing that that will go away very fast because you don't know what to do with yourself.
Mm.
But but yeah, Elon Musk, he put it all to those you know, to those ventures and he was able to make them work. Um where do you see your Instagram page going? Because you talked about it being not just much of a book blog. How else do you see it?
Before answering that, I would just like to mention one thing about like the Elon Musk thing and about
Mm,
like the comparison between him and other people. I think that I might have seen myself or some part of myself in Musk by reading his biography, especially in this part of like um, going for going to chase meaningful things instead of just going for the money and boom, then you're done and you don't know what to do. So I think that I like saw myself or identified myself in that part of his biography, because right, like what I do right now is not like money based. There's obviously some desire to to generate wealth and again an income
Mhm.
and income streams through what I'm doing. But like most things or everything that I do nowadays, or that I like personally work on, like the Reader Lounge or my podcast or other side hustles, all of those things I try to start them, to set off on the journey of them, like from from a point of like excitement, not necessarily just like, oh, this is gonna give me much money, I'm getting into it. It's like, this is fun, I can I can get into it, and it will also bring me like many benefits, including money. And that's also something that I see like in Musk, because I mean, he's the wealthiest person on earth. He could just retire, and I mean, that would be
Mhm.
it. But he still like he's got a bigger mission, and that's sort of what I want to do, or how I try to work on my things, not going from a place of desiring money or just quick benefits, because of how I have seen that journey develops. But then I think that if I just do things for fun, and with that excitement I go big, I think that will bring me other benefits, and that's what Elon Musk did. And so that's what I thought that like is something that I identified. And that, I mean, that's just like a quick fun yeah, highlight, I guess. uh
Interesting.
yeah, and actually here's where I want to get like into the future of the Reader Lounge. So for many months now, I have been thinking like about where I want to lead the Reader Lounge, because it was almost a year ago that I was
Mm.
thinking like, okay, yeah, I am growing an audience online on Instagram and whatever, but what's like the point really? Am I just trying to post things and to grow an audience and to become an influencer or something, or am I trying to create something bigger? Or, I mean, like, what's the point? Um, and so, like, from that uh, uncertainty or doubt position, I then started to create another vision, and this vision included like many more things beyond Instagram. So, like, if
Mhm.
you see an overview of what the Reader Lounge is right now, which is basically like Instagram and uh, smaller platforms like Twitter, in which I've got like 30 followers, or the podcast, or TikTok, or whatever, which are much more smaller compared to what the Reader Lounge is on Instagram. If you
Mhm.
see like that overview of what the Reader Lounge is right now, and then see what my vision is for the future, or how I visualize it, you can see that like it's very small still, and compared to what it could be. And so, as I said, like the point right now for me is to tap into this inner capabilities, dreams, aspirations, into all these things that books lead you to. I want to help people tap into those things through books, to basically like help them develop and improve their lives, and make progress in them. But that's not like only focused in, well, with personal development. I mean, if I can help a person tap into his dream of becoming an entrepreneur,
Mm.
um, and he can read the book like The Lean Startup, or something like that, and he gets inspired by that and then decides to take action, that's kind of the point. But then if then another person wants to become more like outgoing and more of a social person, more extroverted, or at least better with people, then there are books that can help that person with that. And so that's basically the point. It's not about just like leading people to uh, have better habits or whatever. It's like about helping people get into books, because then books can lead them to anywhere, basically, because
Yeah.
that has been my experience. That's what I have seen with many people, and I do believe that can be like escalated, um and that the relationship that people have with books can be changed or improved. I believe that can happen, and that's what I'm trying to do with the Reader Launch right now. And like
Okay.
now getting into uh more of a solid vision, or more into like what I plan for the next months and the future for the Reader Lounge, what I plan to do is like to first like create an ecosystem in which you like can get into TikTok, and boom, there's the Reader Lounge, or at least yeah, there's the Reader Lounge somehow. And
Mm.
then you learn about some book that will teach you how to improve your habits or whatever. And then you get into YouTube, and there's an interview with an author about spirituality or whatever. And then you get into emailing lists and these different platforms through which the mission of tapping into this capabilities, these dreams through books can happen. So yeah, that's like the point for the next few months, to create this ecosystem online using these social platforms mainly, to create a community and to take this mission and value beyond. So that's like basically the point for the near future. And for the like longer term, I would like to keep doing this, but like a very very freaking big scale. So
Yeah.
as I said, like right now it's like the reach that the Reader Lounge is having, even though the Instagram page is generating more than 1 million impressions each month.
Mm.
Even though that might seem like big, I think that there is much more potential to reach people, and not just like to reach them, but to involve the brand in their lives, to thus involve the mission, and to thus involve books and like where they take you and everything. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like the point and where I want to lead the brand to.
So you kind of want it to be like a hub for learning in
Yeah,
some ways,
yeah. I mean,
a place where people can, discover, find, see the Reader Lounge on Instagram, and then it'll lead them to a podcast about maybe the author, that the
mhm.
so kind of a network of
Yeah,
system, which I
yeah.
think is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I obviously think that it is because I'm
Yeah,
working on it.
yeah.
But yeah, like, and one thing that I have been thinking a lot about is like, okay, yeah, the idea and the vision for the ecosystem is very valuable for me, and I think for other people, and it could like get very big. But then how could it be like sustained? And that's where like the business part gets in. And from many books that I have been reading, and many things that I have been learning and implementing about business and about like building um, engines of growth that like lead to to a sustained business. From these things that I have been learning, I have like seen that if you think about for Google, for example, Google doesn't have just one product or whatever. Google is like a very big ecosystem that is in your life. So the brand has involvement and presence in your life. And you think about going to some place, then you think about Google Maps, and you Google the place that you want to go to. Or then you think about sending an email, you think about Gmail. You think about watching a video, you think about YouTube, and these different
Yeah.
platforms that Google has. So it's a very big ecosystem, and they do not like monetize each single thing that they have. They monetize the things that can be monetized, and they do it in a great way, because I mean it's Google is one of the biggest companies on earth.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
you could say
that's
this the same thing about like Amazon. I
yeah.
mean, uh, I don't want to say the name of the device because it'll come on, but the Alexa. As soon as I say it, it'll come on and it'll be like,
Yeah.
go away. But like it's a part of our, it's part of your life. I mean,
Mhm.
there's discussion to be made about, the cost of free shipping and everything. But I mean, that's something they went with, the Kindle, which I think is one of the most ingenious devices
Mhm.
ever divide. I mean, it's not the first reader, but the way they have crafted it,
Mhm.
it's probably the closest one to feel like a book. It doesn't feel like you're holding this like tablet, because tablets usually it's just like you're just looking at it. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, it's
but
a
with
very
like,
different experience. Mhm.
yeah, the Kindle. I don't know, they've created something that almost feels bookish in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's another question I wanted to ask you. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer to read with the physical copy, or do you prefer like a Kindle device?
I prefer physical copies because I'm used to reading in them. Well,
Mm,
I'm used to reading physical copies, better said. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't personally own a Kindle or anything.
mm,
I might buy one in the near future, but really because of how I read books and like how I highlight stuff and then take notes and everything, I prefer like physical books because I mean, I've got here a copy of one of my favorite books, A New Earth.
there you go,
Um,
Eckhart Tolle.
yeah,
Great.
and for example,
Great books.
let
I
me
haven't
just
read that one. I read, The Power of Now, but I've not read A New Earth.
yeah, this one's great. I mean, I haven't read The Power of Now, but I would say that this
Really?
one's better. Yeah, I haven't, but I mean, for example, look at this. Uh, I'm not sure that I could do this
Let me see.
with the Kindle. So I take notes, then I do this little drawings. I
You can't really like, you can't, yeah, like really draw on it yet, but you can, put like highlights and then like
mhm,
click on it and then write, type in a note or something. So yeah, I see what you're saying. You like
mhm,
to write in the books, and I've seen that in your posts. You've got, you put your
yeah.
highlighted books. That's interesting. Do you do anything with like speed reading? I'm just curious.
I used to do, but then because of many things that I read
Yeah.
and many podcasts that I listened, I like stopped focusing on it like that much. So it's funny because I actually learned in an online course about like speed reading, and that
Jim
was
Quick.
no, it was
No.
no a guy from Spain.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, but I mean, what I learned was actually pretty useful, and actually, just fun fact: many from the techniques that I read there, I used in school to get quickly through the material.
Wow.
um, and yeah, so like mostly with the books that I read nowadays, if they are like books that you need to digest and to understand and everything, I try not to speed read. I try to like even understand each paragraph and each concept that the author is sharing. But that's also like something interesting because I
Mm.
was reading Robin Sharma's new book, The Everyday Hero Manifesto, and in
Mm.
a part of it he talks about well, there are many chapters like about reading, but in one of them he talks about like how there are books that you only chew, others that you only swallow, others that you digest.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because I think like if there are books that you only swallow, then I mean, if you just speed read them, there's no problem. Maybe you just want
Mm.
to get an idea of what the book is about, or maybe the concepts that are in it you have already learned about in other books or whatever. Maybe there are some books that you only choose, so maybe books that you don't necessarily agree with, but that you do want to read to expand your awareness about a given topic or whatever. I mean, I would consider that like chewing a book, not necessarily integrating the principles and things from that book into your life, but just like becoming aware of them. And then there are books like, I mean, like this one, like A New Earth again, that you
Yeah.
actually digest, that you actually integrate into your life, that you like books that you think about, that you meditate on, that you then use consistently, and that you revisit consistently. Um, and yeah, so I mean, because of those things, I'm not a lot into speed reading at the moment.
Mm.
But I mean, if I need to use speed reading, I'm able to use speed reading because of the techniques that I
Yeah.
learned. Mhm.
Yeah. I learned some techniques through Jim Quick's course. He
Mhm.
explain he explains a lot. I mean, I'm sure you've seen his
Yeah.
Mind Valley stuff all on there. Um, how long do you like to read for?
I don't really have like uh, a specific amount of time that I read for. There are days in which I might not read at all, and other
Yeah.
days in which I might just spend like maybe 3 hours reading. and it mostly depends like on my mood.
Yeah.
um and also like on the book that I'm reading. So it's a combination of those two. If I, well, at the moment I'm reading the Lean Startup, and with that one I cannot be like in a sleepy mood or in a
Yeah.
yeah, mostly like in a sleepy, tired mood. Because if not, I'm just wasting all like the ideas and lessons that
Yeah.
that Eric Ries shares in the book, because it's very valuable. But then if I'm just reading a fiction book, which I don't usually do, but if I'm reading a fiction book or whatever, and I'm tired or anything, I can just, maybe read for 5 minutes or whatever, and nothing really happens. So yeah, I mean, I don't have like a specific amount of time or routine for reading, but yeah, it mostly like depends on my mood, but also because of like the identity that I have developed. So the identity of a reader is not like I just read once a month or whatever. I mean, it's I read almost daily, so it there are very few days in which I do not read anything, or even just one page or whatever.
Hmm. Interesting. Do you like to read one book and then move on to the next book, or do you read a couple of books? How do you?
I have tried many different things, and I think that like what works best for me is reading probably two books at a time, and making one of those be the main one. So
Hmm.
almost a year ago, I tried reading 5 books at the same time. So it was, yeah, you can imagine how it went. So yeah, I spent like maybe a month doing that experiment, like reading 5 books at a time. And actually, with that strategy, I was much more disciplined. I read like in the morning, in the
Yeah.
afternoon, and then in the evening again. Um, but yeah, I mean, by the end of the month, I had only read like maybe 20 pages of each book, and I mean that
Right.
was it. So that wasn't pretty useful to actually get through the books. But yeah, so what's working for me right now is to have like a main book that is my like main read, and then if I am getting tired of that one or just want to read another thing, I get into the other book. So in December, or no, actually in January, how I did that was with Don Miguel Ruiz's new book, The Actor, and The Lean
Mm.
Startup. So The Actor was my main read, and then like in the evenings or when I didn't want to read The Actor, I read The Lean Startup. And right now I am, well, right now I am actually just reading The Lean Startup because I'm about to finish it. But yeah, that's usually how I read, like maybe 2 books at a time, and one's the main one and the other's just like a side read.
Interesting. Interesting. That's kind of how I read the 48 Laws of Power, because it's such a gargantuan
Yeah.
book, So I was just like, I'm just going to read like a chapter a day, in the morning, and that's kind of how I tackled it. And
hmm
it's fascinating, it's more of a, look back in history and see how history pertains to us.
hmm
But I find that to be a fascinating book. What advice would you give to somebody? Because I'm sure you come across these people. There are a lot of people out there that don't read at all. And those people that are listening now, if they are, what would you give them advice? How should they start like approaching books?
Yeah, I think that we could like divide these people into two groups, like the people who don't read but want to read, and the people who
Mm,
don't read but are like biased into the idea that books are for a certain type of people, and they don't like that identity. So I just want to make like this idea clear before getting into it. So
mm.
for the first group, the people who don't read but want to start reading, they probably are listening to this right now. um
Yeah.
and for them, I would just say like what has worked for me is to read like things that I'm interested on. So for example, the well, Elon Musk's biography I didn't like to read, but then I read something that I that I liked, and then I liked reading. There's actually a quote by Naval Ravikant in which he says something like, "Read what you love until you love to read," or something like that. I think
Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, read even if it's only online articles, read online articles or
exactly.
memes or whatever until you actually start like uh, identifying as a reader. So develop the
That's a
identity of a
that's a
reader.
that's a great idea. Yeah, like it doesn't necessarily have to be a book.
Hmm.
Or here's something I would throw into it. Maybe, look at a shorter book,
Hmm.
like so that it doesn't just like, I think that's one of the things that, I don't know, for me originally, I would like to attack these like 500-page books and I'd be like, okay, how do I do this? And you just kind of do it. But if you start with something a little bit smaller, you'll start going, oh, that wasn't so bad. And you'll build up momentum
Yeah.
and you'll keep do you have any top five favorite books? I know that's a stock question, but I'm really curious with you.
Yeah. Well, I have a list of like top three books, and then I will just mention my two favorite reads from last year. To mention five. So my top three books are The 5 a.m. Club, Green Lights, and A New Earth. The 5 a.m. Club is by Robin Sharma, Green Lights by
Mm,
Matthew McConaughey, and then A New Earth. Um, and then the other two books, I would say, I'm liking the Lean Startup a lot, especially because it's probably the first business book that I'm actually using, I guess. And it's very practical. The only thing that I'd say is that like if anyone listening wants to get into reading the Lean Startup, if you don't have a background in business already, or if you don't understand like basic management and entrepreneurship principles, the Lean Startup will be like a very difficult read, because that's what happened to me. I tried to read it in 2020, but yeah, I couldn't because I didn't understand anything. But then now that I have a broader a broader perspective and awareness about like entrepreneurship and management and all these different things, I have been able to understand and really get into like the principles and the ideas, and it's really powerful. And once you understand it, and once you know how to apply it, I'm liking that book a lot. And then like the other book that I'll mention is mm, I'm looking at my bookshelf to see which one stands out. Uh, I will say um That Will Never Work by Mark Randolph, because that
mm,
book talks about the story of Netflix and how it was founded and everything. And I mean, if anyone listening is used to just watching Netflix, maybe you can get into that one because it might be interesting for you, and then that might get you away from Netflix and into reading.
yeah.
But yeah, that was a really enjoyable book. And a pretty fun read, and especially like for aspiring entrepreneurs like me, it was very inspiring as well. So
It
yeah, those five.
you mentioned those five, and you mentioned like, the lean startup, how you couldn't read it before. That's kind of like how, like, I'm looking at like the Intelligent Investor, which
Hmm.
is just a,
Yeah.
a giant book, but it has everything that you'll ever need to know about business in some ways. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
book that Warren Buffett, preaches to. I wanted to ask you about, as you said, the Matthew McConaughey book.
Hmm.
What about that book?
Hmm. I think that like mm, so yeah, I will share like how that book came into my life, and like how the experience of reading it was like, to maybe explain why that book. So in 2020 he launched his memoir, and then in early 2021 I bought it, and it took me like a month to read it. I read it with the audiobook. So firstly, like the reading experience was pretty cool, because I was not only reading to a random book or whatever. It was like the author reading it to me, and that was a different experience, and a very fun one. So that made the reading experience a lot more um, fun, I would say. and enjoyable. And then like having that level of enjoyment and of fun with that book also led me to like uh I would say get rid of expectations and just enjoy the book. And it's not like the usual nonfiction book that you would read, or the usual personal development book or whatever, because I mean
Yeah.
it's Matthew McConaughey, so it's him talking about his life, which I mean you might not think is like very focused into like personal development, but it is, because each chapter gets into like different ideas, so like finding your frequency and of taking the road less traveled and things like this. So there those are like personal development principles, I would say, that are not just based on theory. They're based on 50 years of life, and in this case 50 years of his life. And so what I found very valuable from this book were not only like the ideas, the principles, and the lessons in each chapter, but also that um it gave me like a different idea maybe of books, and of like the identity of reader. So I think that we're like transitioning sort of into a world in which like books are not only for bookworms or whatever. I mean anyone can read and write a book. That doesn't mean that every book will be a great book, but you don't have to be biased into like uh which book will be great or not. You don't have to judge a book by its cover or by its author or whatever. You can just read and enjoy, and from there you can then judge and make decisions of what's read or whatever. And so getting back into like the book, I think that having Matthew McConaughey, a person who is not necessarily into personal development like Tony Robbins, for example, having him share life lessons with me, so with the reader, was very powerful, I would say. It just like gave me a very different perspective on, like, I mean, not because I read I am weird, considering that many people my age don't read, for example, but it's just like that we are not taught that I mean reading is cool. So I think that
Well,
mindset shift
I,
helped me a lot.
I just want to delve into a little bit of that, why, people our age don't read is, I think it's kind of because it's put in school.
Hmm.
It's kind of, they've made it not, sorry to say it, but not cool, not,
Hmm.
hip to read, because and also they're forcing you to read certain things, as
Hmm.
opposed to what you and I like to do is like, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna read that,
Hmm.
I want to read all over the place. Instead, it's here. And I think that militaristic,
Hmm.
type of mentality is what's hurting reading in some ways.
Yeah, that's also what I'm trying like to change with the reader lounge. Like the relationship that people have with books and with reading, or the ideas that they have about books and reading before getting into them. So there might be people who actually get into reading and books and don't like it, and I mean that's fine. They already tried reading and books and everything, and if they don't like that, then I mean fine, they can try it again maybe in some years or whatever, and then by then it might be valuable for them. But yeah, like
Yeah.
with the reader launch, I'm trying to change uh yeah, however I can, the relationship that people have with books before getting into them. And this includes, for example, partnering with I've got a friend who is a DJ, and so maybe you wouldn't think about a
Mhm.
DJ as a person who reads and listens to personal development stuff and everything. But for example, partnering with him and expanding the brand that way could lead to make this mission of like changing people's ideas of books and of reading. It could lead to make that mission come to real life. And so yeah, that's like what I'm trying to do with the reader lounge, especially with people my age or with young people. And then like about school, yeah, it's I think that it's that way. It's fun because yesterday I was answering to some questions in my IG stories, and one
Mm.
of them was like, which books did you not like or something? And I said, most of most of the books that I read because of school I didn't like.
Same here.
Yeah,
I think we all.
go ahead. Uh-huh.
um, you were we put the groups into two groups. We forgot to mention the
Oh,
second group. Yeah.
yeah. Well, actually, those are the people who don't like to read and are
Yeah.
not interesting. They are not interested in reading, and
Yeah.
that's what we just mentioned. It's not. It's probably not that they don't like to read or that they do have like a logical reason for hating books or whatever. It's probably that they just like didn't have the right experience with books, and that's what changed for me. So before reading Elon Musk, my experience with books was not the best, and because of that I said, well, I don't like to read. But I think that, and that's again what I'm trying to do with the Reader Lounge, if we change the experience that people have with books and with learning and with creating businesses and with all the places that books lead to, if we change like that basic with that base mentality, then we can start changing this idea that people have about books. And so for them, for those kind of people, they are probably not listening to this right now. But yeah, probably, or yeah, maybe in the future
Yeah.
they will. And yeah, so I think that it's mostly about it. So like if people like us can expand the awareness or the mentality that like reading is actually cool, and it's not cool because school says it's cool or whatever. It's cool because it actually is. Um, and so if we can
I
change. Mhm.
yeah, I look at it like it's the workout for the mind.
Mhm.
It's the best thing to keep your mind sharp
Yeah.
is to read, because it just continues to keep you in there. And I think that's a great idea, having, showing people that like this isn't work. Okay, this doesn't necessarily have to be scholastic,
Yeah.
academic.
Mhm.
This isn't academia. It's just, you can just enjoy it. I mean, and
Yeah.
then like you said, there's the books that you chew on, there's the books that you digest, there's the books you kind of just swallow. It's all around. But I think the big thing that, if you can get people reading for at least like 2 days straight, in some ways, you can create a habit, which,
Mhm.
looking at Atomic Habits, which I'm sure you've read that,
Yeah.
10% better. I think if people could look at it in that way and get the momentum, they would realize this isn't that bad.
Mhm.
It just starts with that little bit of like, just start now. I think
Yeah.
is the most important thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is you just got to start. There's no wrong way to do it. Do
Yeah.
it. And then when you enjoy it, you'll be like, wow, I enjoy reading, and
Sure. And then like about reading being the workout for the mind, like there are many people who could say or that say that, for example, you can get where books lead you to with podcasts or with online learning or whatever, and that's quite true. But I don't think that we have to like take one and get rid of the other. We can take both, so we can listen to podcasts in which authors are interviewed, for example, and from there we get to the book, or we can read the book and from there get to the podcast. So we can synergize, bringing the 7 habits of highly effective people into the conversation. We can synergize this these different resources that we have nowadays, because we have a lot of resources to get where we want to go. And like again about the idea that even podcasts or whatever can lead you where books can take you to. Yeah, I mean that's quite true, but uh it's not the same even for the brain, like to just listen to people talking than reading. I mean,
mm,
yeah, I cannot think of anything better than reading to grow like your mhm,
soul, your
your
body, your mind,
yeah,
everything. It grows
everything,
everything.
everything, yeah.
because it can teach you. You can teach yourself how to become different. If you don't like yourself, through books, you could change yourself because you'll have a whole new viewpoint. It's the only thing we have that really like can put you there. I mean, we have video games to a degree, a movie you can watch,
Hmm.
music you can listen to, but a book is you in the book. It's very similar to meditation. It, as I said at the beginning, it just disarms you and allows you to maybe go. I think it also teaches empathy, which is something very important for us to, as a culture and society, to learn, is to have empathy for one another and be like, okay, he's not necessarily wrong here. This is just the way he sees it,
Mm-hmm.
or this is the way that person sees it. With especially in America, the political system is such a divide, and I think the most important thing is to bring empathy to it so that we can understand one another. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to demonize one another. And I think that goes, across the board, countries, anywhere. It's just like the more you can understand somebody else's thought process, the more you're going to be able to, to coexist.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, it was pretty cool that you put it that way. So like books are even like well, reading is even like meditation, because in a world of too much distraction or of too much stimuli, reading is like um a pause for your brain. It's a time where you can just like relax, even if even if you are still thinking, and even if your brain is still like active. It's very different, because like that's when the brain is working. It's not like only stimuli and TikTok showing you stuff for your brain to release dopamine or whatever. It's like a time where you can get uh get within and even explore there. And about the empathy part, that's also very yeah, very interesting, because even if you don't read non-fiction books, even if you read like fiction books or whatever type of books, you are you're kind of having a conversation with another person. And if you are reading a fiction book, you are learning about the characters and their stories and how they think and whatever. And this can lead you to be more empathetic with them and with yourself, even because you might see that something that you do not like in them, you do not like because you do not like that in yourself. And that's something that I have seen a lot in my life recently. So there are, again, many
Yeah.
people who might not like reading, for example, but not only not like reading, even bring others who read down or whatever. There are many people in my life who might be like that, and because of this expanding awareness that I think that I have, well, the journey has allowed me to generate, this expanding awareness has also allowed me like to see that these things that I don't like in them, that they bring others down because of reading or whatever, I don't like that because I don't like that in myself. So
Mm,
even if I don't like or even hate, which I don't, but even if I hate that person or whatever, it's because I don't like that in myself. And
mm,
that person reflects to me something that I don't like. And it also works the other way around. So if I like how Elon Musk works and how he develops his vision and whatever, it's also because even if it's not like in a direct way, he's reflecting to me something that I see in myself. um and that way, let's consider that something being, and that let's consider that that's something good. um then I can tap into those good things and expand them. And then if I see another person reflecting back to me something that I don't like about myself, I can tap into those things and not repress them or deny them, but even use them as fuel for the good things, for
yeah.
example. And I think that that's living in a virtuous way, like not necessarily hiding the things that you don't like about yourself under a mask, under insecurities, but even like embracing them to grow. And even something that is also that has been working for me with this type of people is to even like indirectly, or in my mind at least, thank them for
Yeah.
reflecting to me the things that I don't like about myself, because that way, I mean, that's leading me to like who I do want to be. We got into that,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, books do help you be more empathetic.
But so this has been great. I want to ask you, do you have a beginning day routine? What is your routine when
Yes.
you wake up? This every entrepreneur I know, me, we all have like a thing that we set out and we wake up and it starts our day off. So I'm curious, what is yours?
Yeah. So I developed mine after reading the 5 a.m. Club.
Mm,
And it's fun because so I read that book in 2020, in
mm,
January, in no, it was February actually. Um, and yeah, so as you know, yeah, he well, I don't know if you know, but yeah, Robin Sharma talks
yeah.
about like this morning routine in which you, for an hour, work on yourself. So you dedicate 20 minutes to exercise, to working out, to your body. Then you dedicate 20 minutes to your heart set. That's how he calls like the emotional part of you, and to your spiritual set. I think that's how he
Mhm.
calls it. So the spirituality, you spend 20 minutes working on that, whether it is with visualization or meditation or journaling or whatever. And then you spend 20 minutes learning. And you can read there or listen to a podcast or whatever. And so in early 2020, I used that routine, and then with the lockdown and everything, it started to change. And how it
Yeah.
is right now is that when I do go to school, so in weekdays, I wake up at 5 a.m. And then I
Ah,
work out like for 20 or 30 minutes. Um, then I go to the garden and meditate or just watch the stars. And I try to be mindful or practice mindfulness in a much mindful way. So I mean, I try to be mindful through the day, but that's like the moment in which I'm most mindful, I would say. And that's also like a time for reflection and to slow down and be present and grateful as well. And so like in weekdays it is like that. Then I prepare myself coffee, then I get into the shower, I take a cold shower, and then I start the day. That's how it usually is. And when I do not go to school, when I have like more time in the morning, I wake up at around 6 a.m. probably, or between 6 and 7, or sometimes between like 5 and 7, let's say. And then I work out. I again meditate. I basically do the same. But after that, I prepare myself a cup of coffee, and I read for maybe 20 minutes or an hour. I mean, we already talked about this, so it depends on my mood.
yeah.
And if I don't read in the morning, I will then read like in the afternoon or wherever. And yeah, so like the basic components of my morning routine are, like, I would say gratitude, uh like presence or mindfulness, exercise, um meditation, reading or learning, because when I don't read, for example, I also listen to podcasts while exercising. um and most days a cup of coffee and a cold shower. That's how my morning routine looks like.
Wow, that's great. I I want to say thank you for doing this. This has been great. You've I think you've enlightened a lot of people, including myself. So I mean, I love talking to people who are avid readers because it's like, when I saw your Instagram, I was like, oh wow, he reads the same books as I do, and it was
Mhm.
and I felt connected to, and I was like, all right, this is somebody I want to talk to.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you came on. Um, is there anything you would like to, plug? I mean, you can find the Reader Lounge at on Instagram at the Reader Lounge, the capitalized T, reader, R, and lounge. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory. Is
Yeah.
there anything else you would somebody else they can find you at?
Yeah, well, so as I said, I am working on expanding the Reader Lounge and on taking it beyond Instagram. So, I mean, I'm on TikTok, and I think that the username there is the Reader Lounge and then underscore, because the Reader Lounge alone was already taken. And then on Twitter, it's also the Reader Lounge. On YouTube, the Reader Lounge, and it will be probably one of the first channels that appears in the feed. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then also the podcast. It's called the Book Talk Lounge, and in the Book Talk Lounge, I talk with anyone in the community about books that have been very valuable to them, and also with authors who I find very interesting and whose books I have found very valuable. And actually, a small parenthesis here. I want to remind you, yeah, this was pretty cool. Let's also record a podcast for that show. Let's just pick one or three books,
Yeah,
and then yeah, we can record three 20
absolutely.
minute episodes in which you share them.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I would love that.
yeah,
That'd be great.
let's do that this month. And
Let's
yeah,
no,
so
let's definitely do it.
yeah,
I'm definitely down for that.
great.
Anything else though? Anything? So that's good. I just want to say thank you for listening and thank you for coming on. Again, this has been great. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you again for inviting me. This was pretty cool. I enjoy podcasting a lot, even though it's not like the main thing I do. I do
Yeah,
enjoy talking with people. And yeah, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you also for enlightening people, for spreading the value. And yeah, this was pretty cool. And for anyone listening, I mean, just keep reading, just keep living, enjoy, and yeah, thank you again. This was pretty cool.
thank you. Keep reading.
Just keep reading. Yeah.